Talk life.
I've been traveling on this road too long.
Good day and welcome to the Hub Internet Show. I'm your host, Joel Aaron, joined all week long by Joe and Greg on the panel. And you can go back to last Wednesday's program, watch the face-off debate, and post your comment in the YouTube video, your vote on who won. Was it Joe? Was it Greg? And we will tell you who wins Wednesday on the program and bring somebody back to defend their seat on the Hub Internet Show panel, and that's the way it works. Now, right now, because of Greece, because of Portugal and Spain kind of on the rocks also, and because of so much that's happening in Europe, the European standard of living is really being questioned at this point. I mean, the folks in government all across Europe and Paris and elsewhere are saying we literally cannot sustain the 3-week paid vacation model for August. We cannot sustain the lifestyle that we've had before, the cradle to the grave mentality that Europe takes care of you. I mean, Joe, you have euros, right? You got
yeah, I got a couple euros.
Do you? You got them handy?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. That's about how it looks.
Jeez. Welcome to the European socialist financial system right there.
If you could buy with that would be magic. Now, here's the thing, though. The model is just unsustainable at this point. And we now look at 3-week minimum vacation time that's going on in so many parts of Europe. I'm sitting here thinking, one of the problems is, and we've learned this about Greece recently, is that it's not that the workers are necessarily lazy. That may be true in France. But in Greece, it's that they're getting paid so much more to work for government than they are in the private sector. So they sit around drinking cafe mochas all day. Greg, is there any way that we're going to be able to encourage Europeans to put down the mocha and pick up the shovel again?
I tell you, Europe is learning a Jeffersonian principle right now, that a government big enough to give you everything is also big enough to take everything away. And, they're learning that the retirement age can't be 60. And like Joel was saying, they want these 3-week vacations. They want to have their socialized medicine. And they're realizing that we don't have enough to pay for it. We don't have enough producers in the system because the birth rate in Europe is declining. It's probably going to be negative within a few years. And I believe there was something in an article that said in 2050, they're going to have 43% of the population over the age of 65. That's a pretty scary number. And you can also throw in a little Churchill that the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money.
Yeah,
Europe is facing that right now.
Yeah, I think that was Margaret Thatcher. But
somebody from England.
She was channeling the spirit of Churchill in that case. So, I mean, the thing about it is, though, is that you're right. I mean, they have benefited to somewhat of an extent off of America's involvement in securing, for example, the security of most of Europe since World War II. I mean, they've benefited from not having to pump money as we have into the military-industrial complex because we've had the military model that we've had in place, and because they knew they could trust us, which also brings to mind questions about American imperialism. If the rest of the world is willing to sit on their haunches and let us do the hard work, you got to wonder, how dangerous are we to most of Europe?
Well,
Joe?
Yeah, well, we're not dangerous at all with the lifeblood, and this is just. Look, if you're going to criticize the American work ethic that has protected you for half a century or more, while you're not producing anything of your own, you're not even producing children to fund the promises that you've made to yourselves, then there's just, you have nowhere to stand. There's nowhere left to go for them to stand and try to defend this model that is crumbling as we go. The fact that there's more people working for the government than in private industry, look at America. There was an article in the United States just a couple of weeks ago about the level of pay and benefits in the United States is now greater in the government sector than in the private sector. That should be causing ripples of fear throughout America, and why it's not, I don't understand, except that we've gotten lazy and we're becoming more European. And you just got to wonder, well, look at the people who are leading us into that path.
Well, and at the same time, they are becoming more American because they have decades to show that the social services, the retiring as young as 50 in some cases, and things of that nature, and the cradle to the grave mentality, just does not work anymore. They're talking about reneging on people's pension plans. They're talking about scaling back on social services. They're talking about scaling back on retirement ages. They're talking about scaling back on medical and a lot of different categories because they're realizing it's unsustainable. And now you're looking at a country or you're looking at an area of the world that is seeing the era of their ways. At the same time, we're trying to ramp it up and meet them where they are and cross paths on the way. So at the very least, maybe we should stall it a little bit more so that they can ramp up and be capitalistic and save us from ourselves at some point. Joe?
I agree. The thing is, we've got people who have bought into what Europe promised to be like and are refusing to look at what Europe has actually become. And I don't think they're going to care to learn the lesson. We're going to have to change it. There are tea parties starting in Europe.
Yeah.
American spirit tea parties forming in the heart of the world's socialist democracies. You know, that should be a lesson to people in power, and for some reason it's not.
Yeah. Well, I was on with Matt Fry with Real America on BBC Radio just a few months ago having this discussion. It was specifically about the Tea Party movement, where they are coming out of the woodworks with an interest there, and quite frankly, we're finding our ancient common bonds, or semi-ancient common bonds with England especially, because we're looking at, they are beginning to realize that it is in the same spirit of the Magna Carta that we are created, the Great Charter of Freedoms, that we have created this movement. This movement is not about even capitalism itself. This movement is about freedom and liberty of all mankind outside from under the thumb of tyranny. And they are realizing that we're reflecting their greatest intent in a lot of ways too. We borrowed the idea. And obviously Jeffersonianism and the founders model, so many of the things that we built the country on are reflective of that, the better of what Europe had to offer. And I think they're coming back to their own roots. So,
well,
Greg?
I mean, the Tea Party, it's really a movement of conservatives. And so there's been conservatives in Europe and Britain especially. They didn't join the 16-country Eurozone. The Eurozone, it actually has 16 nations in it, and they have a population of about 500 million people, which the United States has about 300 million. And we produce similar amounts of GDP. Each entity produces about 20% of entire world GDP. The U.S. does that with 200 million less people. So we're obviously a model of efficiency, and we also have more wealth here to share. I don't see how they've been funding these programs for the past few years, and now it's coming back to bite them.
Little conquests here and there, go a long way. But basically, they do need a revolution. They just need a revolution of baby making over there, because quite frankly, the numbers
baby moons. Is that what they call it?
I guess
a baby
so.
moon for every European needs to be go now.
You should be doing PR. I swear,
Well,
Joe.
just talk about the babies. Talk about our baby boomers. As we continue to fund these entitlements for our own aging population, we're a picture of European population demographics in our future. Careful warning bells should be sounding right now. It's a crisis already happening.
Well, and part of it is, there's so much that they have. For example, when you look at the vacation model they've got to go back to that. Part of it is proximity, but proximity has its positives and negatives. It's easy to travel, but it's hell for parity because everybody makes their own working model for their own country, and when you're right next door, in so many cases, you're setting up an inequality. There's a tinderbox there if they don't, as a whole, get it somewhat right. And I think they're beginning to, as a whole, realize they've got to. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see you tomorrow on The Hub.